So let's give this another try. Sound was rubbish last time. I tried this a few minutes ago, and I've had this before. It seems to be a technical problem, not quite sure what it is. Thought it might be a duff battery on my mic, but doesn't appear to be the case. So let's see what happens. So if any people find this, then let's see. Let's get a report on the sound. Am I still sounding like a Dalek? Let me know. And if I'm not, then we'll crack on. So had a few people commenting previously, so feel free to comment. So assuming the sound is all right, which it wasn't a few minutes ago, then why are we here? Well, I'm here to do a sound is clear now. Okay, yeah, there we are. So don't know what that was, technical issue. Thanks, Richard. So as you were, technology, don't you just love it? It's great, except when it doesn't work, isn't it? So there we are. So sound issues resolved. Let's pick up on where we were meant to be a few minutes ago. So what do we do on a Monday morning? Well, I rock up at about 8:30, sound willing, and I'll hang around for about 30 minutes or so, sometimes longer. It was about an hour last week, sometimes longer. And those people that are tuned in ask questions. It's all around property finance predominantly, and you ask and I'll answer. So John, I saw you pinged a question in there, so re-ping that question and then we'll run through. So excuse me. Oh dear. Anybody think I was smoking? No, with a cough like that in the morning, which I'm not, but there we are. So, okay, so fire away your questions. I'll get round to answering them, and we'll just have a bit of a chat around property as we go. And I might throw a few links in here and there if that's relevant to what we're talking about. So, simple premise, you ask, I answer. We've got some questions coming in there now, so we'll go through those in chronological order and make sure that no one gets missed out. So here we go. Connor, there we are. Good to see you again, Connor. And hope the golf's going okay. If you get a property at 25% below market value, will a bridging lender then give you the full amount you paid for the property and therefore not having to put a proper deposit down? Yep, get your thinking here. Now, not sure whether you watched one of my videos, which is called The 5 Types of Bridging. If you haven't, then when we're finished here, go watch that, because that talks about one specific type of bridging, which is called a market value bridge. Now, market value bridges, and there are a few, not many, market value bridges lend on the lower of the asking price or the value, where all mortgage lenders and most bridging lenders lend on the lower of the purchase price or value. So if the value is here, the asking price is here, but you're buying it in 25% below that in the example that you've done, then you want a market value bridger that's going to lend on the lower of the asking price or value. So and there's another video, how to shrink your deposit to way less than 25%, where I explain in more detail how that works. So if you haven't got that or watched those videos, then once we're finished here, get yourself over and watch those. That'll explain something. Now, and that's for anyone else that's watching this as well, either live or if you're recorded watching the replay. So does that mean, so if you can buy at 25% and a bridger would lend you 75% of the value, does that mean you put down no deposit? Not exactly. Now, again, look at one of the other videos, which is how interest is deducted or paid for on bridging finance, and you'll see that there are costs that come out up front. So you've got the arrangement fee. Now that's usually 2%, so that's going to come off. So that means you're going to have to get it 27% below market value to get that paid for as well. And most bridges deduct the interest on a retained basis. Check out the video, the 3 ways that interest is dealt with, and to see that in more detail. So typically they'll take the interest out up front. So you've got to buy it. If you don't want to put a deposit down, you've got to buy it with that as well. So now you're up to probably getting on for 35% below market value. And then even then, you probably still will have to put a deposit down, because most bridges, market value bridges, not all, but most market value bridges say, well, we want you to put down 10% regardless. Now, if you want to pay a higher rate of interest, you will get one. You will find a lender, and we will find you a lender that will say, no, okay, yeah, we'll let you do that. So quite simply, if you're trying to avoid putting a deposit down, then buying it 25% below value is not enough. But buying it with a much smaller deposit, then that's certainly achievable. It's just buying no deposit is highly challenging. Bridges want to see a bit of skin in the game, even if it's not 25% skin in the game. Good. So Daniel, hi. First time watcher, great. Good to have you along. And I've been recommended to you as well. How good is that? So you can start to educate myself a bit more. Well, a couple of ways you can do that, Daniel. So watch these lives if you can on 8:30 every Monday morning. And if you can't watch it live, then you can watch the replay. So second thing to do is to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because there's getting on for 80 videos in there right now. So let's give you the link to do that, just to make sure you're on there. So I'm going to pop a link in there. There we are. So when we finish here, Daniel, hop over to my YouTube channel. There it is in the should pop up in your chat box now. So hop over there, have a little browse around. If you haven't already, subscribe if you haven't already. Now another thing to do is that on Facebook I run a group, Recycle Your Cash for Property Investors. So you might want to join that. So let me pop a link to that in the chat box too. So there we are. So that should come in there. And if you want to keep up to date with different types of content, I do blogs or other sorts of things, videos, and that in addition to the YouTube stuff, then I'll give you one more link, and that's like and follow my Facebook page, Kevin Wright Property Finance Expert. So let's pop that in there. And because I put a lot, most of what, well, in fact, all of what I put out comes through the property expert page. So let's pop that in there. Okay, so we'll get, there we are. So appreciate you starting to follow me, Daniel, and hopefully you'll find that informative. And yeah, got any questions? Now, if you've got any questions, Daniel, then use that property finance expert page and fire a question in me there, and I'll pick that up and answer. Good. Okay, so good to have you around. So here we say, Sam P, what's your outlook on property prices over the next year? Will they fall, and wild guess how much by roughly? Hang on a minute. Let me find my crystal ball down here somewhere. mate, no one knows. No one knows. You know, if you could predict property prices, you know, it's a bit like if you could predict share prices, if you could predict the lottery, you know, you'd be a millionaire many times over. No one knows. So, but we can look at what is happening and currently and see how that could play out. Okay, now, when we were in the midst of lockdown 1, everyone was predicting that property prices would drop by anything as much to 15% by the end of 2020, by the end of the year. And this is, you know, even the Bank of England was saying, not saying it was going to happen, but they were saying it could happen. And they're also saying, you know, someone like Savills came out and said, you know, anything between 10 to 15% drop by the end of 2020 is what they were forecasting. Well, we're pretty close to the end of 2020, and that hasn't happened, has it? You see, so forecasting is notoriously unpredictable. Now, why hasn't that happened? Well, one of the fundamental reasons, I think, why property prices have confounded the predictions that were made during lockdown 1 is the stamp duty holiday. Now, very smart move by the Treasury, really, because they thought, well, you know, the economy's rubbish at the moment, or it's going to be rubbish when we come out. We're going to be in recession. We don't need a property recession on top of a general economic recession. So let's put an artificial stimulus into the property market and try and get a soft landing there. Let's try and buy some time on the property market so that we can get the economy turning again before we let the property market sort itself out. So the stamp duty holiday, it's not the only reason, but I think it's a significant reason why we haven't yet had a downturn. Now, that's due currently to be withdrawn in March, and we'll go back to stamp duty as it was previously. Now, if that happens, that could be a key time to find out, okay, well, actually, how sustainable are property prices right now? So, but what happens if, you know, they come around to March? Now, let's take another stimuli, furloughing. Now, furloughing was meant to end in October. It didn't. It got extended because the economic climate dictated that it should. So it's possible that the same thing could happen when we get towards the end of March with the stamp duty holiday. It could be withdrawn, but it could be extended possibly until next October 2021. So that would again artificially buoy up the property market. So at some point, you would think that the stamp duty holiday's got to end, and stamp duty would be reintroduced. Now, whether it's reintroduced in the same way that it was before, or whether it's remodified, we don't know. So I think one of the big factors is what happens to property prices in next year is the stamp duty holiday and when it finishes. You know, wild guess. Well, I could give you a wild guess. Ain't going to mean anything though, because you know, wild guesses tend to be inaccurate. But you've come up with a second point here, so let's deal with that now. The reason you ask is because would now be a better time to refinance to avoid a down valuation if prices will fall. Well, you know, yeah, it would, because if you refinance now, you're crystallizing the value as it is now, and that means that if you can pull money out of a property, oh, sorry about that, phone going. I'll answer it later. So if you can pull a property out of it now and you can get the money that you want out of it, then why not do it now? You know, it's a bit like saying, you know, should I sell my shares now, or should I wait and see if the market goes up? So, you know, these are questions that you can't answer. You can only do what you think is right at the time, and then, you know, events will prove you right or wrong. And if you refinance now, you'll get what the property is worth now. If you leave it until sometime next year, property prices might rise, and then you'd get more out, but they might also fall, and you get less out, and you leave more cash in the deal. So, you know, it's just a question. You've got to go with your gut feeling, really. So, I hope that helps, Sam. But it's a very indistinct question to try and answer. So Connor's back with another one. Would you say these types of loans are hard to get? So we're talking about market value bridges then, I guess, picking up on your last question. So if you don't know which bridges do them, they're very hard to get. Yeah, you know. Fortunately, we do know which lenders do them. So for us, no, they're not hard to get. There's probably not as many lenders doing them post-COVID than there were pre-COVID, but you know, they are still about. So if you want to get a market value bridge, then Connor, make it simple for yourself. Come to us. Let us broker it for you. Good. Now, let's making sure we don't miss a question. Here we are. John Marshall. Okay. Hi, John. Currently in the process of buying a repossession. Okay. Restriction on the deeds in favour of Aisha Greener relating to a gas boiler they installed 7 years ago. Apparently their restriction will not be overreached when the deal is done. Have you come across this company before? No, I haven't. And if their restriction remains, will you struggle to remortgage this? Well, a restriction generally means you owe them money. So someone puts a restriction on the property because they're owed money in some way. So, you know, you would need to drill down. So charges on properties could be a barrier. Now, they're only, well, it's not a charge, it's a restriction, so that's not quite as good. Now, some lenders might have an issue with that, you know, but some aren't. But I'd be more interested in finding out from your solicitor who's handling this, why this isn't done, because you should buy it with a clear title. So I'd be concerned about why you would buy a property with a restriction on it, because what it seems to me is Aisha Greener, whoever they are, a boiler installation company presumably, didn't get paid for the boiler they installed. So therefore they want their money and they want to know when it's being sold. So I'd be very surprised if the restriction wasn't lifted if they were paid. So that's the angle I'd be going down, is to get rid of Aisha Greener, John. Good. You need any more help, John, by the way? Ping me a message to me, finance expert page. Okay, Sam A, another Sam here. Good to see you again, Sam. Is it right to assume that the interest rate is going to stay or even may go into negative equity? No, it's not right to assume that at all. You know, it's difficult to know what things are going to. I think you can assume that it's going to rate low. And now you're asking me to pontificate on economic policy, Sam, and I'm not an economist. So, you know, really that's beyond my gift to decide what the monetary policy of the committee of the Bank of England are going to do with rates. What you can say is that high rates choke off economic growth. So I guess you could be fairly sure that given the parlor state of the country's finances, that they're not going to be raising rates any more than that. It's beyond my wit to answer that, really. Sam, good. Okay. So questions are still rolling in, so that's good. Russell, there we are. Good to see you. If you're buying a property with a short lease below 60 years, am I right in saying that you would extend the short lease prior to purchasing it, rather than purchasing the property and then trying to extend the lease? Well, here's the point. The Act of Parliament, which covers this, it might be the 1993 Property Act, but don't quote me on that, gives any leaseholder the right to get the freeholder around the negotiating table to discuss extending the lease. Now, that right only comes into effect 2 years after you buy the property. So the current owner, having owned the property for more than 2 years, has the right to issue a Section 42 notice, as it's called, to kick off the process of leasehold extension negotiations with the freeholder. If you bought the property as it is with the short lease, you would have to wait 2 years before you acquired the right to do that. If you get the now you can't do it because you don't own it, so you've got to collaborate with the current owner who owns the lease and get them to do it. Now, this is a strategy that I teach on my advanced training, so I know exactly how to do this strategy. It's quite complex, Russell. Now, you're aware you can come into difficulties with certain lenders with short leases. Let me rephrase that. You can come into difficulties with all lenders with short leases. Mortgage lenders generally don't like lending on short leases, and some of them won't lend on anything below 85 years. Below 60, you pretty much got no chance of getting a mortgage on this. Now, I teach the way around to do this. Quite complex, but I've been teaching this for several years. How do you keep the seller happy whilst this work is undertaken, ensuring they don't pull out while you're arranging this? Very easy. Exchange contracts. That's how you do it, Russell. No seller's going to pull out if you've exchanged contracts and then got a deferred completion. Yeah, deferred or delayed completion. Yeah. Now, bear in mind, once you kick off the Section 42 notice, then this is not a quick thing. So doing it through this statutory route is going to take you a minimum of 6 months. And also, you'd be crazy to use an ordinary solicitor to do that, because they're just going to get the runaround. There are specific leasehold enfranchisement solicitors that do this and do nothing but this. And if you're not going to get shafted on the price of extending the lease, you need to have one of these in your ring, in your corner, because be certain that the freeholder will have their own one. So you need to, you need to fight fire with fire on that. So complex strategy. We've done that a number of times. So if this is a specific inquiry you've got, Russell, then just ping me a message, see if I can help you with it. Thanks for your question. Rolling down. Have we got any others here? Just make sure I try to miss one. Okay, Peter, there we are. Good to see you back again. Following on from Connor's question, if he gets the higher value bridge lower than the agreed price, will the vendor pay a higher capital gains tax? No. Vendors you know, and you know, the question is, if you're the buyer, what do you care? What does it matter to you how the I'm just gonna, that sun's coming in there this morning. Nice to have a nice bright sun, but don't really want it on that. So you know, if you're the buyer, it doesn't matter to you whether the seller pays more capital gains tax or not. But and if it's their own residence, they won't pay capital gains tax at all, because you only pay capital gains tax on non-main residence property sales. And so how you finance the deal also has no impact on the tax that the seller pays. The seller pays a tax based on the purchase price. So none of what you're suggesting has any effect. None at all. Good, thanks. David, good question. Good to see you here. Thank you. Currently have 3 buy-to-lets. Oh, okay. Will lenders factor in the rental income when they are assessing what they're willing to lend on a main residence? Okay, so you want to get a main residence and you're saying, hey, well, I earn this much from being employed or self-employed, but I've also got this much in rental income from properties. In most cases, David, no, they won't, because they don't cast that as income. The reason is that in their logic, they say, well, your tenants could leave. And then you've got a void, you've got no rental income. And so therefore, you cannot afford the mortgage that we gave you based on your rental income. So in most cases, no. And as usual, if you can find a lender, or we can find you a lender that does, anyone that does something that most other competitors don't do is going to charge you more money to do it. That's a rule of the world, isn't it? Okay. So John Marshall says, cheers. Cheers, John. There we are. A second, there we are. Can I get an indemnity insurance to cover a restricted covenant that says the property can't be used for business? Should I require the property to be used as service accommodation? Well, indemnity insurance is a question for solicitors. So you should be asking that for you should ask that question to your solicitor. Now, if the property, but why are you trying to breach covenants? As a question, if you want to run serviced accommodation, go and find a property that hasn't got a covenant. Why do you want to buy yourself into a problem? Property, investing in property is an exercise in risk mitigation. So you mitigate all the things that you can that could cause you hassle. So having a property that you can't use for business purposes is hassle. So, rather than try and find an indemnity insurance, it's okay. Here's another question: can I use a hammer, and if it's big enough, will it bash a square peg into a round hole? Is another way to pose that question. So I think have a different look at that, either don't rent it out as SA, or buy a different property that you can rent out as SA. So I think that's the wrong way to look at the issue. Okay, but thanks for your question. There we are. Sam's back with another question. Sam A this time. Just going to see a property which has less than 50 years on the lease, but it is about 40 grand below market value. I haven't made my mind up yet. Well, let me try and help. You pay 40 grand for a property, 40 grand less than the value for a property that's got less than 50 years on the lease. You're almost certainly going to make a big loss on that. Because the cost of extending a lease rises exponentially with each year that it ticks down. So if you'd have been able to do that when you had 60 years on the lease, it'd cost you an awful lot cheaper than now. It's got less than 50 years. So, I teach a lot of people how to do this, Sam. And the one thing you've got to get clarity on is how much it's going to cost to extend the lease. Because if you don't know that, it's the same as not knowing how much it's going to cost to refurb a property. I can get a property I can get a property 40 grand below market value, but it's going to cost me 50 grand to get it into a decent shape. So, understanding your numbers on any property you're considering buying, Sam, is the most critical thing to do. So if you want help on that, I've helped people work out how much a lease is going to cost or likely to cost. So happy to help you on that. Oh, there we go. Clement, there we are. Yeah. What, in your opinion, will happen to house prices in the UK, especially in London, over the next 12 months? Clement, you've got as much idea as I have, fella. And listen, you're an experienced investor. You got your, particularly in the area you are, you've got your, your ear close to the ground. So you'll be knowing what's happening in your area. Someone asked a similar question earlier, and I said that the property prices are being artificially inflated by the stamp duty holiday, and when the stamp duty holiday is removed, we'll probably see what the true value of properties are. Now, the question is, when's that going to be removed? Is it going to be March, as it currently is, or is it going to be later? If it's later, how much later? If it isn't going to be removed in 2021 at all, then it may not have much effect. So you really can't answer these questions, I don't think, with any degree of accuracy. And as I said earlier in the previous question, back in lockdown 1 in April, the Bank of England was saying property prices could fall by as much as 15%, could fall by as much as 15% by the end of 2020. Well, listen, if the best economists at the Bank of England can't even get it right, what chance have the rest of us got? So can't say much more than that, really. Clement, okay. What would you say the best strategies for today's climate? Can't really give an answer like that, Connor. Okay, so let me say, let me give you an example. Well, the best strategy in today's climate is to take an office block and convert it to flats. Now, if you haven't got the cash, the experience, or the credibility to get into buying a block of flats, an office block to convert to resi, whether that's the best strategy or not makes no difference, does it? So the best strategy is the one that suits your circumstances. Yeah. So there is no best strategy, Connor. There is no best strategy that otherwise everyone in the country would be doing the same thing, wouldn't they? And they're not. So you gotta analyze what you can do. Here's the thing that I say to people when I'm training: focus on what you can do, not what you want to do but can't. So take a look at your own circumstances, where you live in the country, how much cash you've got available, what experience you've got investing in property, and all those things are going to shape what's the best strategy for you. So thanks for that. Clement says, noticed auction prices are going for ridiculous monies. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Connor. So here's a strategy for you. Buy a property that needs doing up, stick it in auction, and sell it for a profit. There you go. That's the strategy. It's a brilliant time for auction sellers right now. Yeah. There's a number of reasons why that I think that is, Clement. You know, and I've said this before, stamp duty holiday is a factor. And also, then I think particularly during the last lockdown, when people were stuck inside for 3 months, I think they spent a lot of their time watching, you know, property programs like Homes Under the Hammer, and come to the conclusion, well, how hard can it be? And so they've all piled out. And of course, the other myth is, here's the big urban myth. You know, you get bargain price properties at auction. You know, you can normally tell someone that's new into property when they say, I'm going to start buying properties at auction, because they've watched probably too many episodes of Homes Under the Hammer, where, of course, you can make the stupidest mistakes and you still come out smelling the roses and making a pre-tax profit. The reality is nowhere like that. You know, it's often auction properties, prices at auctions are dearer than you could buy them through an estate agent. So, you know, that's not to say you can't pick up an auction bargain, but it isn't the place where you routinely pick up cheap properties. So, so there's a whole host of other things going on there. But yeah, that's it. You know, you don't find experienced property people overpaying at auction. The people that pay ridiculous money for auction are inexperienced property investors. Some people are waiting for the best time to invest. Your opinion is the best time is now. Well, you know, it's that old saying, when was the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time now? Now, if you're going to flip, then it's a riskier time because, and I've said this in previous weeks before, you know, the only time you crystallize a loss or a profit on a property is when you sell it. So if you're going to buy and sell it within a few months, you're more susceptible to changes in the market. You know, in a rising market, you'll make money, exponential money, without doing anything extra to earn it. In a falling market, you could, well, you will reduce your profit. You could eliminate your profit, make a loss. Now, if you're buying for the longer term, so you're going to buy, hold, rent out, then whether it's worth, you know, whether it's worth more than you paid for it or less than you paid for it, it's only a paper profit or loss. You know, if you're not going to sell a property for 10 years, the only time you actually determine whether you made money or lost money is 10 years' time. So buying now and holding and renting out is a lower risk. Pavel, there we are. Good to see you. Can you use a done-up value bridge only on an off-market purchase? No. Done-up value bridges work perfectly well through agents or direct to vendor. Yeah. What they don't work for is repossessions and auctions, because you can't do what you need to do to make a done-up value bridge work. But if you're buying through an agent, then it absolutely can. And if anyone watching either live now or the replay, and you don't know what a done-up value bridge is, then hop over to my YouTube channel and check out the 5 types of bridging video, and that'll explain to you what a done-up value bridge is. I think there's also another video I've done, which is how to fund refurbs. I think there might be actually one on delayed completion too. So, you know, check out some of those videos. Okay, another one from Clement. Do I think it's risky having multiple mortgages with the same lender? Not really. I think it only gets risky if you've got all your mortgages with the same lender, because if they have a change of policy, that could leave you, you know, a bit high and dry. So, you know, and if you're a volume landlord, you know, you can't, there's not enough mortgage lenders. You know, if you've got, I don't know, 30, 40 properties, you're going to struggle not to have more than one mortgage with each lender. So no, I don't think it's risky at all. So Segane is back with another question. Can I buy a property that doesn't need fundamental repair with a bridge? You can, Yeah, of course you can. Should you is another matter. Why would you do that? Because you know, the only reason you buy a property using a bridging loan is for the opportunity to add substantial and exponential value. And if it doesn't need anything doing to it, you're not going to add value. So therefore, there's usually no real reason to use a bridge. You just put it straight on a mortgage. Reason being, you have a cash gift from abroad. But I understand it's difficult to get a mortgage. Okay. I think where you're going here is that mortgage lenders don't like gifted deposits. And that's very true, because they think it's bullshit. You know, no one gifts you tens of thousands of pounds. They loan you tens of thousands of pounds, which you have to pay back. And mortgage lenders don't allow you to borrow the deposit in almost all circumstances. So, you know, if you got a cash gift from abroad, great. So if it's enough to buy a property cash, then do that. Because once you own the property, mortgage lenders aren't asking you where you got the deposit from. That's only when you're trying to buy the property. If you've got this cash gift from abroad and it's not significant enough to borrow, to buy 100% of the property, then well, find a property that does need fundamental repairs, because then it'll be worth buying with a bridge, using the cash as the balance of the purchase price and maybe the refurb cost too, and then refinance onto mortgage. So if you're going to use bridging, you've got to use it on properties that add exponential value, really. Pavel said, I strongly recommend Kevin's YouTube channel. Loads of great info. Thank you, Pavel. That's very nice of you to say that. I have to agree, by the way. Okay, Alex. Do you know of lenders doing gifted deposits? Family below market value sales without having to use a cash deposit, using the equity as the effective cash deposit. Depends. Okay, so let's look at this, Alex. Depends which family. Okay, now, you know, if it's your parents, then that's okay, because they understand that parents want to help out their children and they will give them money without expectation of return. The more the more distant the relation is, then the less likelihood they're going to, because they don't believe it. You know, your second cousin, they don't believe your second cousin twice removed is going to say, hey, Alex, I really like you. Have 50 grand on me. Don't worry about paying it back. That's okay. You know, plausibility is a big word in mortgage underwriting. Plausibility. Is it plausible that someone is going to give another person tens of thousands of pounds and never expect to get it paid back? And in almost all circumstances, no, it's not plausible. Now, we have done deals where someone in a family, let's say, you know, an adult child has bought the parents' property from them, or it could be an uncle's property or an aunt's property, and they are prepared to take less money. So if it was for let's say 200,000, they could, you would sell it to them, you would buy it at full market value, but with a gifted deposit. Let's say, you know, you've got 150,000 and they give you that. Possible. So if this is the real thing for you, Alex, then just you know, connect with me privately using the link that's further in the chat. I'm a property expert page, and I'll get my guys to help you on that. Good. Okay, thanks for your question. There we are. I have a mortgageless property with a second charge loan on it. can I refinance it for a normal mortgage later on? Well, that's something weird, Pavel, because second charge loans only the reason they're second is because they're not first, because a mortgage lender's got it. You should have had you must have had a mortgage on it at some point. Otherwise, you couldn't have got a second charge loan on it, because second charge loans by definition don't do a first charge. There has to be a mortgage in there first. So can you refinance for it normal mortgage later on? Usually not, because the mortgage lender, whenever you apply it to them, says, well, I'll tell you what, let's give you enough that we'll pay back the second charge loan as well. So they would normally want to take out the second charge loan and include that in the mortgage. Okay, come at consolidation debt loan. Okay. Again, they would probably say, no, we want to give you enough to pay that off as well. Or the maximum we've got to lend you, we're going to lend you, has got to include paying that off as well. That's more than likely how most lenders would look at that. Okay. Alex says it's your dad's property, worth 325, buying for 200. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, lenders would say, Alex, yeah, they understand why your dad would want to help you out. That's plausible, using the word that we looked at earlier. So if your dad wants to gift you 100, as long as 325 is what goes on the land registry, and you pay the right amount of stamp duty based on 325, then you will get, and you want this to either, well, you could use it as your main residence, but you may well want to rent it out, then yeah, that's feasible. So if you want to pick up with us on that, Alex, then hop over to my Facebook page, Property Expert, Facebook Kim Wright Property Finance Expert page. Ping me a message on there and we'll pick that up. We'll help you find the lender for that. Good. Okay. So rolling down, Russell's back again. Hi, Russell. Looking at purchasing 2 off-market value properties. Okay. Both under market value, considerably. Good. Need full renovations. Already owned by the properties, which I put down 25% deposit. These 2 off-market properties would need 75k deposits each, which I do not have. What other options can I look at lending? I don't want to charge on my personal home. Okay, understand that. Yeah. For many people, your main residence is sacrosanct. Perfectly reasonable point of view to take, I would say. So, okay. So what you could look at, Russell, is either market value or done up value bridging. Now, if you don't know what those are, then hop over to my YouTube channel, scroll up, you'll find the link, and you'll look for the video that says the 5 types of bridging, because they explain what they are. Now, that doesn't mean that you can do this with no cash, but you can do it without needing 75k deposits. So again, ping me a message on my Property Finance Expert page. Link is in the chat box, and I'll walk you through how we can get you the finance to do these with substantially less deposits, and look at how much actual cash you can get to do these without. So let's have a look. Okay, good. So we seem to have come to the end of questions. So thanks for that, and hope you've found today useful. Thanks for everybody that's watching. Thanks for you for watching live, and if you're watching the replay, thanks also for taking the time out to watch the replay. Now, I'm going to be back, and I'm going to be back next Monday at 8:30 in the morning, and we'll do this all again. And so thanks for tuning in. Give me some likes actually while we finish off. I had a few likes and at least one love. So yeah, give me some likes if you're thinking this is good. So here we are. Have a great week. Whatever you're doing this week, make sure you take some actions that are going to push you forward in one way or another. And there we are. Oh, now Clement's just popped in with a question. Lots of irony of crazy auction prices is you've found that you've done up houses via estate agents for the same prices as dilapidated auctioneers. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I agree. Good. Okay, guys, have a great week, and girls, of course. Have a great week, and I will see you back here on next Monday morning. Bye for now.